Why, hello everyone, and thank you for joining me for the first episode of the Day One Game Pass show of 2024. For this first half of January, we're going to be talking with John Sycamechanico Clark about Genesis Noir, Nicholas Baker about Resident Evil 2 Remake. Yeah, he actually played something on an Xbox. And finally, we will have Gyozo, aka Fairy Empire, to talk about Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So let's get right into it. I am joined once again by Sycamechanico. John, how are you?
I'm very well, Jesse. Yourself?
Pretty good. Recording this on the Sunday before it's going to go live early for patrons.
Love you, patrons.
You're watching this later. You get to see it a few days early if you are a member of our Discord. And you can Patreon. My goodness, I was going to also say, on the Discord, you get special access as a patron member. You get the YouTube Lounge, you get the giveaways, which they slowed down over the holidays, but I was going pretty crazy there for a few months, and I'm sure it'll pick back up.
You were just like this. You were like the GIF. Just games. Games for everyone. It's great. It's glorious. I love it.
But we are here to talk about both of our favorite Game Pass games that we probably wouldn't have played without it. Genesis Noir, a cosmic adventure. Would you please give me the rundown of what this wacky game is?
This is a wacky game, right? And as anyone that has been following XboxEra for a while, I'm a bit of I love the quirky, the unique, as Jesse I think would rightly put it, the arty-farty of the video game world, particularly when it comes to indie games. And this is a game by a development team called Feral Cat Den, which is up there with the Artful Escapes Beethoven Dinosaur. Is it Beethoven Dinosaur?
That sounds so. Right. There's also I can't remember the team that makes Turnip Boy Robs a Bank, which will be on the next episode as I'm reviewing it. They've got a really funny name, but I can't freaking remember.
I love it when devs have fun with their names. But yeah, so Feral Cat Den, brilliant. How to describe this? So I grew up on point and click adventure games. So Simon the Sorcerer, Monkey Island, Police Quest, stuff like that, right? And that genre has it's not died, but it's definitely no longer as popular as it once was, and mostly because video games are capable of so much more. This is closest to that, but it's not really point and click either. I'll try and set this up as best I can because it is bonkers. So it combines everything I love about video games, which is a unique visual component, crazy out there imagination, and brilliant music, particularly jazz in this instance. So there's a very
it's a genre you don't get a lot in video games.
Yeah, it is very, very unique in that regard. And the nutshell is here: you play as a character called No Man, not Norman, as some reviews misheard. No Man, and he looks a little bit like a kind of Dick Tracy style noir detective, but he actually represents time. Right, bear with me. This gets weird. He's in love in this game with a very buxom lady jazz singer called Miss Mass. Right, you can see where this might be going. Unfortunately, she was a bit naughty and she got into trouble with a character called Golden Boy, who is a saxophone player in this world, who shoots her. The gunshot in this game is the bang, right? And the whole game is actually a representation of the Big Bang, i.e. the creation of the very universe in which we live. It's extremely cool the way they do this. So they teach you a little bit about, the theories around the Big Bang as you play through the various chapters. And it is completely insane, but brilliant. I mean, I did the review for XboxEra. I mean, when did I do this? Back in 2022. And the reason I thought it would be a nice one is they've just announced a sequel called Nirvana Noir, which I sense might be delving into the spiritual side.
Yeah, I had no idea they were doing one. Yeah, I was very excited.
I was delighted to see it because they've gone the other route. So this is it isn't lacking in color, but it is definitely more monotone.
It uses it for a purpose. Like, you only
Yes.
get a lot of color when they want to convey something to you.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas Nirvana Noir looks very brightly colourful, and I feel
Yes.
like it's definitely going to dive into the other side of the equation, right? So this is dealing with the science of the Big Bang, but representing it through characters and mystery and stuff like that. Whereas this is dealing with perhaps, you know, our place as beings of spirit, believing in the afterlife. I'm curious. I don't know. I haven't played it yet. I'm looking forward to it. But the way you interact with Genesis Noir is I mentioned point and click. It's closest to that. It's more like there are various states of interaction from you know, spinning your left thumbstick to move the stars and cause time to pass so the plants will grow, to just clicking on things with the floating cursor. It's really difficult to convey in a way that might make it seem super exciting, but when it all comes together, that art, the music, and the puzzle design, you're just like, this is nuts. And it is
They
such
knew
a
what
cool
they were
little game.
doing for such an unconventional way of interacting with a game. I think for most people, they nailed making it feel good enough that it's you feel smart. You don't feel frustrated most of the time. You feel clever, and that's always one of the hardest things with having a good puzzle, but not having such a good puzzle that your brain is just racking, or you can't do the movements with your fingers on the controller.
Yeah.
Instead, this one is really smart about how it makes you feel good while you're doing really weird shit.
Yeah, like, and I'm talking weird stuff like cultivating the first specks of life in the oceans using volcanic underwater volcanoes, bringing all the various pieces of mass together to condense it into a star, and then a black hole. I mean, it is crazy. Having said all that, as much as I love it, and this is obviously from the perspective of someone who loves these kinds of experiments of, you know, game design meeting art and music, there isn't a lot of traditional game here. So if your traditional fare is, you know, your big AAA blockbusters, there's no
even if you like platformers, or if you like traditional
indie
binary
games.
punch kick shoot, or just solve puzzle platform, you're in control all the time. It's not that. It's the experience type.
That's the best word, experience.
Yeah. It's like a more like if you liked Immortality in the very realistic, but you don't do that much, you do more in this one, and it's definitely not realistic. So if you've got those, I don't know, like Lynchian noir proclivities, and you can like that type of stuff, then this one will be right up your alley.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, I mean, because I'm casting my mind back, it wasn't perfect at the time. I encountered a couple of chapters that didn't close, but at the time I was playing pre-release software, so it's been a year and a half, and then I have no idea if patches have been submitted, but they were minor bugs. And it's not really a game that you can probably want to replay over and over and over. Like, once you've solved the mystery and it's all come together.
If it's been many years and you've forgotten, you might start thinking, I kind of remember that. Yeah, it's worth going back to, but it's not something you're going to jump into every once in a while to play again.
Yeah, but as an experience, incredible soundtrack. I think that team, the band, is back again for Nirvana Noir. And it's really weird. When I watched this, I think Disney's Soul had just come out, Pixar, and it was reminded me of very similar, you know, abstract motifs in terms of the way they presented their kind of spiritual realms versus this game. So there's lots of very cool, very swell stuff. So basically, if you want to feel really smart like me, play the game. Yeah, honestly, it's an experience worth going through, especially if you've got any interest in how we all came to be. This is such a unique way of telling that story, that it should be experienced by anyone with a passing interest, I would say, even non-gamers, because it's simple enough to be able to just prod and poke at the systems and find a way through. But yeah, I loved it. So 100% recommend it. It's on Game Pass still. And clearly they must have done something right, because it looks like Nirvana Noir, its sequel, is also launching on Game Pass, I believe, this year. Hopefully sooner rather than later. So yeah, keep an eye out. But yeah, do let me know if you enjoyed it, Patreon and Game Pass folks, because it's not a traditional game that a lot of people would maybe give it a go. But honestly, wholeheartedly recommend it.
Yeah, I'm in that camp. I would not have probably checked this out if I had to. If you're making that monetary commitment right up front, but it's the type of thing that you're very, very happy that you did.
Yeah, 100%. Can't go wrong. That's why I love Game Pass, right? It's one of those unique experiences that you might float past, but because it's there, it's 100% worth your time. Promise.
I agree.
Scout's honor.
All right, well, thank you, John. We will see you soon for yet another talk, because we're going to be talking about more stuff getting in the bank, and then there's going to be a lot of me and John talking about stuff in this show because we got time.
I heard a rumor that Nick's played an Xbox game.
He did. In this very episode, he's talking about Resident Evil 2's remake. I know.
Well, hey, maybe if you position this, that could be the next segment. Oh, I'm here for you, buddy.
Wow. Well, coming up next is Nick talking about Resident Evil 2. Ciao for now.
Bye, folks.
What's going on? First time. Joined by Nick. Nick, how are you doing?
What's going on?
There's a full one.
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah.
Finally got you on here. You finally played something that's coming to Game Pass. You played it in the past.
Yes.
Resident Evil 2's remake.
Yep.
This is a good one. This was a get that didn't know if it would ever happen because of all the shit that went down with that Capcom leak, and we found out Sony had forever marketing for $10 million. Oddly enough, coming to PS Plus at the exact same time as it's coming to Game Pass. So that
exact same time.
Still seems to be in effect, but break down this game for me if you would.
Yeah. Well, I had been told it was coming to Game Pass. It was meant to be in Game Pass like last year.
I remember you telling me,
I guess the deal got delayed, as we've seen. Break it down. So, Resident Evil 2 Remake is more recently, people will know the Resident Evil 4 Remake. It is a reimagining, is probably the best way to describe it. A reimagining of Resident Evil 2, the PlayStation 1
remake.
classic.
Not what people have been calling remakes. This is a remake.
Yeah, this is a remake. Like it's for all intents and purposes a completely new game, really. Almost like a sequel, you'd say.
Yeah.
But obviously it still has Leon. You still have Claire. God, I get all my Resident Evil protagonists mixed up. Claire. You've got A scenario, B scenario. But obviously now gone are the tank controls. Gone is the fixed camera. It's your third person over the shoulder shooter. With all the modern trimmings. Visually just...
Very good.
My God. It just looks so good. It's a great survival horror game. I've beat it. I think I've done 2 runs. Engines,
really? That really
yes.
I forget the timeline on that.
Yeah. I think there was earlier RE Engine games, but I think this is the one where people were like, "Oh my God, look what this can do." But it feels great to play. I think I've beat it once with Leon. I've either beat it once with Leon and once with Claire, or I've beat it with one of them and I'm part of the way through another run with another one, if that makes sense. For those of you who have played Resident Evil 4 Remake, Resident Evil 2 Remake also has all the little DLC keys. Like, there's a key that you can buy, I think it was like $3 Australian, and it just unlocks unlimited ammo and all these weapons. So, it's amazing. So, I bought this key and I'm doing a run with Leon where I've just got the rocket launcher out and I'm just just mowing absolutely everything down, and it is so much more fun that way. It's just so good. Like
I like that it's an option where the very first time you're going through it's super intense and it's really tough, but then you just come back and you can just say, you know what, eat shit. I'm gonna just absolutely annihilate you this time.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I think it should still be experienced the proper way. It's a really, really good game. It's paced really well.
Is awesome. After you've already done
it. Resident Evil 2 is paced really, really well. The levels are are really cool. They're all quite different. The puzzles aren't unreasonably difficult. Like, you should be able to solve most of them on your own. Yeah, it's good. You should definitely play it the proper way. If I had to say one thing I don't like about Resident Evil 2 Remake, and it should be obvious, is Mr. X. Like, I just don't like stalkers in video games in general. And I forgot, like, I don't remember him being in the original Resident Evil 2. Now, I just looked it up, and he was in it, but he played a very small role in it, which is probably why I don't remember him. Where Resident Evil 3 Nemesis on PlayStation 1, which I played back in the day, that was all about the stalker. He was there for the entire game, which is why I hated Resident Evil 3 Nemesis back in the day. But in the Resident Evil 2 Remake, unfortunately, Mr. X plays a far more prominent role, which, it's not that he's hard. Like, a couple of decent shots in the right spots, and you take him down and he goes to one knee and you just run around him. Mm-hmm. But he's annoying. You just want to explore and you just want to do stuff. You don't want to have this thing after you. Now, you might say, oh, Nick, but you like Alien Isolation. It's like, yeah, but I'm going into Alien Isolation knowing that that's what the game is. The whole game is this alien is after you. So I know that going in, and I'm going there under that pretense. In Resident Evil 2, that's not what I was expecting. I just thought this was going to be a cool Resident Evil game. And it is, don't get me wrong, but the stalker Mr. X makes it a bit annoying. Which is why having the unlimited rocket launcher and unlimited SMG and all that make it so much fun. Because he comes along and you don't get scared. You're just like, here, dude, take a fucking rocket to the face. And then you just shoot him and you just go around him and it's fine. But it's such a good game. I think it came very close to my game of the year.
There's going to be footage that is all PlayStation footage because they had marketing. As we haven't reviewed this one, I just had to pull a trailer, and you get nothing but PlayStation because they bought the marketing.
When did it come out?
2019, I believe.
When did it come out? Oh, so we had barely started XboxEra back then. Mm-hmm. I don't even think we had... we started the podcast June 2019. We had a couple of videos
in 2019, not much. Mostly articles. And
Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense. Because I'm like, really? We didn't review Resident Evil 2?
About 3 years when you think about the review side of things. And even then, 2020, very light. 2021 picked up quite a bit when I started doing more and more. Yeah. Last 2 years, we've gone nuts. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, unfortunately, we did not review it. But I reckon if we had, I would have rubber stamped a 9 or a 9.5.
It would have been way up there.
It's such a good game. Yeah. It's a fantastic game. Like, if you love the original, then definitely play it because it's faithful to it in all the right ways and fixes it in all the right ways. If you just like survival horror games, it's one of the best ones there is. If you like third-person shooters, it's just a great game, just in every way. Have you beat it?
I have. I played it back closer to launch. I think I rented it from GameFly on the One X.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it a lot because I was never a huge Resident Evil guy. People are going to get very mad at me. I never really liked them until 5 because I even played 4 and I couldn't...
5 was the best one.
The tank controls killed it for me in 4 as much as I liked everything else. The one I enjoyed and would just go back and play for fun was 6, which I never thought was good, but at least it played okay. It was really stupid. Really curious what they do if they remake 5 and 6. What changes? 6 is going to change a lot.
Well, 5 won't change a lot. I hope they remake 5 because 5 was my favorite. Until Resident Evil 2 Remake and 4 Remake came along, 5 was my favorite Resident Evil 5. I thoroughly enjoyed that game. And did you play it in co-op? 5?
Yes, I played it with the missus.
Yeah, 5 was an unbelievable co-op game. But what I forgot about 5, it doesn't have tank controls, but I forgot that it still had stop and shoot. You couldn't strafe or whatever and shoot at the same time, which I completely forgot about.
And that's why I like 6 because it was more of an action game and it wasn't frustrating to try and do stuff.
Yeah, so I assume that if and when they remake 5, because why wouldn't they at this point? The only thing that would probably change is they'll improve the visuals, obviously, even though 5 was a beautiful game.
He better punch a boulder.
And I assume they'll modernize the controls a little bit more. And I do wonder what they'll do about the enemies at the start. Because remember, there was a bit of controversy about the enemies. So I do wonder if they'll make an adjustment there.
I think they would. They're smart.
But the beauty of Resident Evil 5, there's no stalker. So if they put a stalker in, it means they've gone out of their way to put that stalker in, because there isn't one in the original game. So if Resident Evil 5 Remake comes out as is, that will end up being my favorite Resident Evil. I can already tell you that right now.
Yeah, that's why I quite enjoyed it and replayed 4, but I never replayed 2 or 3 because of the stalker.
Yeah.
I'd probably replay 2 more. 3 is just so freaking short. It's still all right though. But for 2, Mr. X is the only thing that keeps me off. I guess the main thing I would say is the nice thing is this is coming to everything. It's coming to cloud, console, and PC. If you've got a good gaming PC and you can just tap heads with a mouse, it makes these games so much easier. Because even though they do feel good on controller now, especially since they fixed 4's input latency, when you just click people in the head in these remakes, the games are a hell of a lot. God, I forgot how goddamn gory 2 is. I got the scene where the guy's jaw's just unhinging playing right now.
Yeah. I'll say one thing about 2. If it wasn't for Mr. X, I'd almost consider giving 2 a 10 out of 10. That's how good this game is. If it wasn't for Mr. X, it would be a borderline 10.
Because Resident Evil 4 is really close to it for me. And 2 and 4 are very close, but then Mr. X just always knocks it down in the long run. But if people
my thing, I love 4, and I haven't beat 4 yet. I'm still playing through it. My issues with 4 are around, I don't know, I just think I like the slight...
The more grounded,
the more linear
in the police department, and you're just following a path.
Yeah, I like all that.
A thing where you kind of get a little lost at times, and
this
is very much not that.
And I've hit a point in 4 now where I don't know if I want to go back. I've just hit the point in 4 where you discover the regenerative monster.
Yeah,
and then it comes for you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh god, I don't know if I want to deal with this. They're kind of like a stalker.
They're very easy the moment as long as you have the scope, they're super easy. Especially if you're on PC, because then you can just shoot the little thing inside, they're gone immediately. But if you don't have the thermal scope to see, it's a pain. And if you're trying, when I was trying to originally do it, aiming on the very input latency heavy controller on Xbox, it was really freaking hard to fight them. But now it's not so bad. You just have to have that thermal scope.
Oh, I'll have to check if I've even got it.
Yeah, because as long as you got the thermal scope, you can see inside, and you see the thing, you shoot the thing, they're gone. There might be 2.
Because I was like, okay, it's handy knowing that. I might go back now that I know that, because,
so
man, as soon as
stalker,
I saw one...
But still pretty annoying at times.
Like mini stalker. Like, I pulled out my rocket launcher and blew it up, and I'm like, okay, well, this thing's dead. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it starts regenerating. I'm like...
Yeah, it has a specific thing you have to hit. But if you do, you're fine. 2 is definitely scarier. 4 is just more the big action horror. But 2 is like actually pretty scary. For the first time, I really felt
the first. In my opinion, the first 2 or 3 or even 4 hours of 2 are like unbelievable. Like, up until the point you get Mr. X, it's just some of the most unbelievable gaming ever. It's so good. The atmosphere and how... it's great.
And it's crazy because when the originals, you go back and I can't play them. I can't play that control stuff.
The tank control stuff.
These, it is so damn good. So it's just a really good get. Because they've got a good relationship with Capcom, but Capcom is pretty limited. Yeah. They limited themselves with the marketing deal back when they were let's be everywhere all the time. So it is nice to finally see one of these coming, because they had 7 forever. They never got 8. I'm curious, will they get them over time at the same time they end up on PlayStation Plus? So
They should
nice.
go for 5. If 5 remake is a thing, they should go for it because 5 had marketing with Xbox.
I'm
Like,
just
I
curious,
bought
that
the limited
marketing
edition
deal
red.
that we saw, though, like that contract just seemed to be forever. So I don't know.
Surely not.
I hope not.
I don't
That's
know.
what killed Square.
I bought. Yeah. I bought the limited edition red Xbox 360, the Resident Evil 5 one. So that game has association with Xbox to an extent. And
Which
because
is probably
Xbox was the
why
co-op multiplayer box.
PlayStation would want to block it more because they've been so desperate to try and stop
Yeah.
association with Xbox on any big properties now.
But isn't the rumor that the next one will be Code Veronica?
I don't know. I know people have been wanting that, and that's the one I loved on the Dreamcast. Like, I remember.
I loved it
playing
on
the shit out of
Dreamcast.
That. Yeah.
So do I. I don't remember the game, but I remember playing it and
Yeah,
loving it,
same.
if that makes sense. Like, if you told me to describe what happens, I'll be like, But do I remember playing the shit out of it and loving it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And being
I very
happy
much
that
do.
Sega finally had big stuff again after they had gotten screwed over so much on the Saturn, like with Tomb Raider and whatnot.
Yeah. Code Veronica on Dream. If that gets a remake in the way all these ones have, I reckon that'll be huge. It'll almost end up being the biggest one.
Mm-hmm.
If they get it right. But I think Code Veronica has a stalker too, doesn't it?
4 was pretty damn big.
It was. But Code Veronica, I feel, is more of a cult. It's got that extra push of the cult following as
Yeah.
well. But didn't Resident Evil Code Veronica have a stalker?
I honestly, it's been so long since I played it that I honestly do not remember. Look it up.
I need to look this up.
But yeah, so Resident Evil 2 remake. We obviously are fans of the franchise. It's one of those Capcom ones that's always stuck with me. This and Onimusha, which obviously makes sense. They're pretty similar in how they played.
That's why I loved Code Veronica.
What? Why?
Doesn't have a stalker.
Oh, there you go.
Oh boy, that
I don't
remake
remember
is
most of
gonna
them.
be
Like
good.
that was the thing with 3. 3 was so much about the stalker and why I never really liked 3 that much.
Yes,
It was very
3,
pretty.
it was in the name. It was in the name. Resident Evil 3, Nemesis. Like, the stalker was in the name. But I don't remember Veronica having one, and now I just looked it up, and Veronica does not have a stalker, which means I am very much looking forward to the Code Veronica remake.
If they make it. as
that
the
will be
rumor
amazing.
is. Yeah. But yeah, thank you
If they
very
make
much.
it, but... Yep. Are we done?
I hope they make it. But yeah, so I think we'll call it there because we could just keep going on about every non-Resident Evil 2 game because there's so many good ones in the franchise. And as they keep hopefully hitting Game Pass, we'll keep hopefully being able to talk about them. But thank you, Nick, for joining me.
Yep. No worries.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
So we'll see you next time. Ciao for now.
Ciao for now.
Why, hello. I am joined again by Fairy Empire to talk this time about Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Soon to come to Xbox
Hello.
Game Pass. Yeah. You're a huge Assassin's Creed fan, much like me, reviewing this title back when it came out. It's always nice to have you on. Thanks for joining me.
Well, the pleasure is mine. That's a massive game, actually. It's by far the biggest game of the franchise. Just an absolute boatload of content, for better or worse.
Yeah, it's funny.
We'll talk about
people think of Origins and Odyssey as big. Like Origins, I don't know, 35 hours, you can beat that game pretty easy. Or Odyssey, 45, but you can do a lot more if you want. But Valhalla, to beat it, is still like 80 or 90, and then you can do like another 300 or 400. I've seen people easily put into that game.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
I remember when the game came out, I bought it at launch. I wasn't gonna, but then I got COVID, so I was like stuck at home for a long time. So I was like, yeah, let's just play Valhalla, right? And I played like 150 hours at launch to 100% the game. That was just the launch content. It was very good, actually. So there's absolutely some padding because there's so much side content, so much of the mini games and stuff just keep repeating. So there's that, like most open world games. But yeah, there's also a very good combat system. The open world is very good. So yeah.
If you're into the Ubisoft open world map game, this is their most Ubisoft open world map gamey but at the very high level where it doesn't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of repeated stuff. There's a lot of Radiant type stuff. Oh, I forgot. Proven's actually the one that did our review on this one. I was going to, but he really wanted to. So this one, what great gameplay they have. It's just freaking hitting a horse into the side of a pier trying to climb up it. The what I remember this is one of the only ones I haven't beaten. I got really far in. I got like 40 something hours in, but then obviously XboxEra just started taking so much time that it's very hard to go back and finish something so big. How long was it for you if you were just gonna mainline? How long do you think this one would have been?
I think your estimate was more or less correct, but I think you could. I'm not gonna say speed run it, but if you really just concentrate on the story, maybe you keep a low difficulty because you don't really have to be stealthy in this one. This is one of those, new era Assassin's Creed titles where you don't really have to be an assassin. You just can go in fully loaded.
You can be a very loud assassin. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you're a Viking in this one, so you have all these axes and all these finishers. It's very brutal. It kind of loses some of the stealthiness, and you rarely need it. Like there's some DLCs and some post-launch updates that have some of that content, but we'll get to that obviously.
But you can even say the intended expansion of Mirage, which is an offshoot of this game, starring the origin story of Basim, who's a part of this.
Exactly.
Takes place like what? 10,
I
15
think if
years
you play
before?
like 50 hours, you could probably beat the main core of the game. You might risk being under leveled for some of the late areas if you only do the story. That's a risk, but I don't think the difficulty is too extreme either way. I remember doing it on normal, and when I was like level 200, there were areas that were like level 320, and they were still doable. Like, you still had to, sweat a little, but it wasn't like, like in Borderlands when you go to an area with a level that is like 5 levels above you, and you each of your shot takes like one HP. So it's not like that. It's harder.
That's funny.
It is
that's what Far Cry was like. Not Far Cry. Freaking Avatar. Far Cry's like that, but then Avatar was like that to the extreme. Where if they were 1 or 2 above you, you just like you got to play unbelievably stealthy and smart to be able to survive. So when it comes to when it comes to Assassin's Creed for you, where do you fall? Are you more into I like the old terrible combat, okay stealth, lots of escort missions and spying on people, or do you like the newer, bigger, open RPG style more?
To be honest, it's I think it evolved nicely. Like I kind of miss some of the stealth stuff, but at the same time, the open world design actually evolved a lot. Exploring these giant areas, especially in Origins, which was I'm not sure right now if that's still on Game Pass. It was a while back.
I haven't seen the Ubisoft stuff leave. So
I think
generally when it goes in, it's stayed. So I don't think any of it's left yet.
Yeah, maybe that one has the best open world, but yeah, I like the new era of Assassin's Creed games as well. The gameplay actually evolved. Like it has a bit of heavier combat. I want to say somewhat inspired by Dark Souls. Please don't throw stones at me for that, but it's obviously not that demanding, not that difficult, not that technical, but you definitely feel like you're no longer just spamming attacks, but there's a bit of the stamina going on. There's a bit of heavy attack stuff like that. You have to move around, roll, dodge, parry. So it's slightly more demanding. So I think I like the new style more. I definitely loved the old style when it was around, but when I go back today to games like Assassin's Creed 2, which has an amazing setting, an amazing story, fantastic characters, everything, the gameplay just didn't age that well. So I'm glad they evolved the formula. So, and I think
it was very much. It felt like that old swashbuckling, do your riposts in the old games, and these ones it's just much more. What would actually be a very fun video game? Like what exactly works in other things that have been going, and I hit that a lot. I liked it in Origins, though I felt it was a little restrictive. I like the more superhero feeling in Odyssey, which was just a really fun power fantasy. I wouldn't want all of them to be like that. It made more sense with the story and everything in Odyssey.
Yeah.
This one, I think, struck a balance a little better with the sword and board and being Souls-ish with the targeting of people and whatnot compared to Origins. But the world of Origins, and sorry, much like my issue with Forza Horizon 4 versus like 2, 3, and 5, England's kind of boring sometimes. There's just not as much there. I actually preferred the stuff in their home area compared as much, if not more, than England in this one. I also, it's on the screen right now, the leveling tree in this game is a lot,
enormous,
man.
Yeah. I
It's not
didn't mind
bad.
it actually. Like, I keep seeing people who claim it's bad, but I think it's just something that keeps you motivated to go on, because it's one of those games where you can level up pretty much indefinitely. Because even when you complete this tree, there was like 400 abilities at launch. Some are only like bonuses, like +7 attack or +5 stealth or whatever. But I think via the free updates, they probably pushed it around like 500, I want to say, plus more if you buy the DLCs. So it's absolutely massive. But at the same time, even if you finish them, you can still, kind of like prestige levels, kind of like in Call of Duty. So you can keep upgrading your stats indefinitely. So, and I think it's a pretty smartly designed game, because everything you do gives you XP. So if you hunt animals, it's XP. If you kill enemies, that's XP. You finish missions, you do dailies, because, there's all this gas stuff as well. Game as a service stuff with the dailies, the weeklies. So you get points that you can spend, premium currency, all that stuff. But yeah, you keep leveling up. Even if you already did everything, you keep leveling up. You can keep getting better. And it feels like you're improving, so that's pretty good. At least by now there's hundreds of hours of content, but at least the game has some progression going for it. So it's not just aimless.
That's the thing Ubisoft always gets, is constant carrots on a stick, depending on how long they're going for. Like they had just enough in Mirage, and in this one, with it being so big in comparison, they went more with the you just go forever, which they hadn't really done before. But they're excellent at long-term support, which I think is one thing you see around the industry, is you got to realize you have to commit to live service. And even people look at a game like this and like, oh, I don't want this being live service. Well, it's not gotcha. It's not trying to yank every penny out of you. It just wants you to keep coming back to it. So you want to get there, like have a higher attach rate on expansions and stuff, which I know that on Game Pass, you just get the base. So for people that are going to play, did you do all of the DLC and expansions, or at least some of it?
Yeah, I did everything. So there's actually free paid DLCs, which are the usual DLC 1 and DLC 2 that you get in every Assassin's Creed game. I'm going to say those are a little bit disappointing this time. Usually the second one is very supernatural, very crazy. Like the one in Origins had all this Egyptian myths, the supernatural stuff, and of course,
and they had the same in Odyssey with Isu place.
Atlantis, So that was very cool. I think Valhalla didn't go that far, because there were 2 pretty grounded DLCs. The second one was a little bit disappointing. I liked the setting in the first one better, but they're pretty decent. They still had like 10 to 20 hours of content, so that's not bad. And then for the first time in this series, they did 2 years of support for the game. That's only usually been 1 year, so you got 2 DLCs, a couple free updates, and that's it. And this time they went beyond, so we got a major expansion pack that's like, I think it was like 30-40 hours of content, and this one was the supernatural one, without the Norse mythology. So I didn't like it as much as I hoped I would, but it's still worth playing, I think, if you like the base game. But since Game Pass only has the base game, it's still got a lot of free updates. So how everyone's right now talking about the new roguelike mode in God of War Ragnarok. Well, Assassin's Creed Valhalla did like a year or two ago. It's pretty meaty. You get a lot of unlocks. There's a lot of new game mechanics, and since it's a roguelike, at the start of the game you don't have weapons, you don't have abilities, and just you have to choose what to pick, what to unlock. So it's pretty varied. The maps aren't procedurally generated. Like it's the same designs pretty much. So but yeah, the way the enemies are placed and everything, those change. So that's a pretty meaty mode as well. They had a free update that tied the game up with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So you get to meet Cassandra from Odyssey, of course, the female character in this case.
Yep.
And yeah, there's been so much stuff. I think they had the naval raids, the ship raids. They had what else did they have? They have these events for Halloween, for Christmas, and everything. So even if you don't buy a single DLC and just play the game as it is on Game Pass, if you want to play everything, like want to complete 100%, get every free achievements, if you want to call them free, I think you're still easily looking at over 200 hours of content if you want. Obviously, you can just play like 50 hours, play through the story.
Mm-hmm.
They also expanded the ending via free update, which also ties it into Assassin's Creed Mirage that came out just a couple months ago. As you said, setting up the story, which is a prequel about Basim, who plays an important role in the franchise now. Obviously, not going to spoil how or why or what's going to happen with that, but yeah.
It's funny, for DLCs that didn't go supernatural, the base story's pretty Isu heavy, let's say that, if you know what that means in Assassin's Creed. And it's funny, I look at Cassandra and I'm like, they're going to put her into everything because people love her so much. They never put Alexios in everything. They put Cassandra in everything.
Yeah.
And her incredibly...
I think it's kind of the same thing here, because they have Eivor, the character. Obviously, kind of like in Odyssey, you get to choose whether you want to be male or female. I think just like in Odyssey, the better option should be the female option here, obviously. Pick whatever you want, but yeah, even if you let the game pick it for you, basically the canon one is the female version again. So basically,
but they still just wouldn't let them actually do it again.
Yeah, exactly. If what we hear around from rumors and stuff is true, it's like 3 consecutive games that they wanted to have a straight up female lead. Like with Orange, they just swapped it so that the female character was a side character. You didn't get to play as her. And with Odyssey and Valhalla, they found the compromise that you can still be, the usual white male that apparently every gamer wants. But if I look at the games that are popular, I'm seeing that that's not necessarily true.
It doesn't really matter, especially because it's not. I mean, as long as they're a good character, that is what people really care about. I did in this one, thankfully, the male voice actor I think is a little better as a protagonist, because in Alexios was a very good eventual antagonist in Odyssey. So I eventually recruited my whole family. I saved everyone. First playthrough without even looking up any guides. Saved them all. But yeah, I think a lot of people look at this franchise and they feel overwhelmed by it. I definitely would say you don't have to play the previous one to enjoy the current one. You might get the overall narrative better, obviously. But yeah, for anyone that's like looking at these games and like, well, I don't know which one to play, just go with whichever setting really looks the most enticing to you. You get ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, or essentially medieval England for the most part. And they're all really goddamn good.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about the setting, because this one, has these Norse warriors from Norway. There's an initial prequel. There's an opening area, a pretty big part in Norway, with snowy mountains and everything. And then the story takes us to England, where these Vikings are conquering around the lands, and you still go back to Norway a couple of times. Also, a couple other locations I'm not gonna spoil, but some pretty interesting stuff. And since you're talking about the story, you may know or remember or have heard that the first Assassin's Creed games back on the Xbox 360, those were basically very heavily linked together in terms of story. Like Assassin's Creed 2 and the two games after that are like
Yeah,
the
it
same
was a
protagonist in
full-on
the past.
trilogy. Yeah.
Yeah, the first 5 games had the same real life protagonist because with the whole Animus thing that you're in the future and they go back in the past to play at these events. And then they kind of stopped doing that because it got confusing. So you have Black Flag, which is
There's
like
so many, and they wanted to have so many games.
Yeah.
That
Unity, Syndicate. There was 1 year where they had like Unity
And
on
Rogue.
the new consoles and Rogue on the old ones. So you had like 2 giant, several dozens of hours of open world games releasing at the same time. And then, like, yeah, that was probably too much. So they probably,
especially with how Unity launched.
Yeah, that was a very, very complicated launch, but at least I remember that game being bundled with every other console, so every code selling site had the game like for like $2, so it wasn't too bad, I guess.
Unity's setting, like that Revolutionary War France and or Revolutionary France, whatever they call it, like that look and setting and the what they went for in that one was pretty awesome.
And it still looks good because it's so dense, so detailed. And it's been now on the new consoles on Series X and stuff. It runs at 60 FPS and it feels very good. So,
we're both huge fans of the franchise. I think this one's an easy recommendation for anyone looking for a big open world map game. It is that if you're into it, like I actually think most people are. I know a lot of people complain online about them, but with how popular they are, with how much you get out of them, this one gets my biggest thumbs up. I really enjoyed the hell out of it, and it's nice seeing all 3 of the new ones on here on Game Pass.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna echo what you said. Since there's like 3 Assassin's Creed games of the new style on Game Pass, I just think about whether you like ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, or the Viking era. Whatever you like more, just try that game. These stories are not too linked anymore because, as I was saying, they kind of dropped the whole interconnected storyline. To be fair, Valhalla tries to reopen it a little bit, but nothing too serious. It just tries to connect to some things that happened in the old games. Again, I'm gonna spoil anything, but there's some heavy callbacks to some events from the past. But at the same time, it's like 2 stories into one. The one in the past and some ongoing stuff in the present. Like 99% of the game is in the past. So even if you don't get nothing of what happens in the,
you just be like, oh, that's
present,
cool. Yeah, even if you don't get the whole connection part.
Yeah, but that's like what, 2 hours out of 200. So that's that's really not gonna ruin the experience, I think.
All right, well,
yeah,
Barry, thank you so much.
One if you want.
Yes, this game's great. It got good scores and tons of people. It's their most successful game ever for Ubisoft, I think.
Yeah.
For a reason. But thank you so much for joining me. Definitely have you back on here soon to talk about a heck of a lot more. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely. We have so many games to talk about, so we'll be back.
I know. All right. Thank you again. Ciao for now.
Okay. Bye, folks.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Next show, we should have at least Turnip a Boy Robs a Bank and Go Mecha Ball with John interviewing me. But until then, see you next time. Ciao for now.